been disbursed on the last financial year. But where the government is putting money, we know if you come to invest in Tanzania, the first thing is you look on the regulations and the policies. The second thing, if you want to invest in the agricultural sector, you say, where is the land? How can we access land? The government embarked in a huge program called Block Farm System. What the government is doing, we acquire the land. We don't grab the land. We acquire by the law. If it needs compensation, we pay compensation. The government does proper soil analysis. If you come to the Ministry of Agriculture, you'll come straight, you say you want to farm what? Sunflower. Go to Singida. We have 150,000 acres. What do you want? The second thing is we give what we call subleasing title of 66 years. I repeat, we give you a subleasing title of 66 years. But we will sign with you a performance agreement. That what is your business plan? When are you going to utilize this land? When is it going to be utilized? And then you'll be taken to the TIC for the TIC to facilitate you with all the necessary opportunity. But when you produce, we consider agriculture and livestock and fishery as a business. You know, historically, a farmer goes to the farm. When the farmer produces, he's alone. But when he gets the crop, they become public properties. We start putting regulations, say you cannot sell rice, you cannot sell maize. Those are history in Tanzania. You produce what you want to produce and you'll sell anywhere in the world. We will not ask you a question. It is the role of the government to make sure the Tanzanians are well secured in terms of food. We are food surplus. And that's why the government decided to invest a lot of money on the infrastructure development, on the irrigation. We put a lot of money on the post-harvest losses. And the government has changed the operations of the post-harvest losses and the storage facility. Through National Food Reserve Agency, through cereal boards and other infrastructure cooperatives, we allow private sector to use the public properties for their storage. They do aggregation, they can use government infrastructure for their storage so that they wait and later on sell. But because of the logistic and location of Tanzania, Tanzania has become a hub for the fertilizer business. Most of the traders and big companies invest in Tanzania on the logistics and the storage of the fertilizer so that they can trade with other landlocked countries. But the government knows that if we want to increase productivity, we have to reduce the cost of production. We embarked in a huge program on the fertilizer subsidy. It was a huge discussion. Some people said that, you know, whatever you are doing on the subsidy is a distortion to the market. Thanks to the African Development Bank, they understood our game plan. And we say the subsidy program is not only for smallholder farmers. In Swahili we say kilimo sio umaskini. Most of the time people, when they discuss smallholder farmers, they think of 1 acre, 0.5. The program of this country now is, when we define smallholder farmers, we start with 10 acres. That's our definition. So we are trying to help the smallholder farmers. Instead of using small land, we aggregate them in a bigger blocks so that they can get economies of scale. And even the subsidy scheme of the government did not only focus on smallholder farmers. We are intending to reduce the cost of production. We allowed even the large-scale farmers to access fertilizer, which was subsidized, because the bottom lines are very clear. We want to increase the productivity. So these are the areas whereby we think that the country is doing. We have transformed on the policies of the trade, on the agricultural areas. My counterpart, Minister of Livestock, on the engagement, he will tell you more on the opportunities on the livestock. But this is the second largest country in Africa with a lot of cows and goats. Yesterday in the presentation, if you take we are told by one professor that if you decide to take all the Tanzanians of the 18 years old and you take all the cows and distribute to them, the average is every Tanzanian will get maybe 2 or 1 cow. 1 cow, eh? Yes, every Tanzanian will get 1 cow. So there is a huge opportunities on the livestock sector. There is what we call national ranches, land, whereby the government is promoting the possibility of allowing private people to use public infrastructure. We are embarking in a huge program for the development of the infrastructure on the seed multiplication. The government is putting a lot of irrigation on the seed farms owned by the government. But who will produce the seed? Not the government. The government will focus on the research and development, get the right variety, allow the private sector to do multiplication, and the government will offtake the seed to distribute to the smallholder farmers at the subsidized rate. This is the second year, and we are going to do this for the next 8 years. And this has helped us now, out of the 60,000 metric tons of quality seeds produced by the United Republic of Tanzania, which is 50% of the demand, over 70% of that docket is done by the private sector. There is a huge opportunity on the fertilizer infrastructure. There is a deposits of phosphates, and some of our investors are here. I can see Minjingu is around. He started very small, but we have a huge facility, soon will be inaugurated by Her Excellency the President, of a 1 million metric tons installed capacity in Dodoma of the organochemical fertilizer. But the fertilizer consumption and uptake has grown from 300,000 metric tons to 580 last agricultural season. But we are targeting a consumption at least of 1 million metric tons by next 2 years. This is an area whereby, but the population of Tanzania by 2030 is projected to be 80 million. 2050, we are projecting the Tanzanian population to be 130 million people. But we all know the agribusiness in Africa is expected to be over 1 trillion in the near future. So all these are the opportunities around. And our country is ready to host. And with the policies done by our counterpart Minister of Finance, is that if you can bring in your capital here, when you are taking your profits out, we will not question you, because that's your money. If you have paid your taxes and the liabilities of the government, why should we ask you where you're taking your profits? But we will encourage you to reinvest by showing you available opportunities. So in short, is that we are developing a framework which will allow the private sector to be the driver of our economy. Now the country is toward what we call 2050 vision. But the backbone of the 2050 vision will be a private sector approach. And one of the key sector for the driver is agricultural sector. So let me take this opportunity to conclude my remarks by saying that this country has gone through different levels of the transformation. The infrastructures now are right. The policies are right. But one area which has not been tapped is the available resources on the production side. And that's the agricultural sector in a broader context. And we can only tap those resources by partnering with the private sector. The government now is allocating, we have started now preparing the lands for that. We are doing the ecological survey. We have created what we call Tanzania Agricultural Growth Corridors. When you come to this country now, you don't need to start doing the research and analysis to see, if I get a land here, what should I produce? When you come, you'll be given a data and understand your market. Out of this 10 crop, what can you produce? What is your market? We want the production of the agricultural sector to be market-oriented. We will not force people to produce what they don't want to invest on. Those days are gone. And the vision of the President of the United Republic of Tanzania is to create an inclusive economy with a sustainable growth by respecting the private equity. The government has decided to reduce the cost of capital on the production by instructing the regulator, the central bank, that every dollar or shilling going in the production should not be charged more than 9% interest. Initially, the loans which were taken to the agricultural sector, the cost of fund were over 15, 20, 30. You cannot make profit on the agricultural sector with 30% interest rate. Maybe we produce marijuana, I don't know. But by producing maize, you can't make that money. So it was a deliberate decision made by the president that you people from the finance and from the central bank, I want single digit. Thanks to Tanzania Agricultural Development Bank, we have a vehicle called TADB in this country. The role of TADB is to de-risk and give guarantees to people who are investing into agricultural sector. We came up as a country with what we call export guarantee schemes under the Ministry of Finance. And nakushukuru kaka for that, on behalf of myself and my counterparts in the agro sector. Because the money people, they always see us as a risk. So we ask them, what do you want? I don't know if the commercial banks are here. What do you want? We want guarantee, no problem. Last year we launched what we call export guarantee scheme. So if you want to produce for export purpose, you'll knock the door of the Ministry of Agriculture. We will take you to the big boy and tell him that, my friend, these are people who wants to do this. But also the government is bailing out some of the companies. We are in a huge scheme now to analyze big companies in the agricultural sector whom faced a huge problem on the COVID era and did not do their business properly, so that the Ministry of Finance can take that role, because there is no harm to protect your private sector. Even big economies does the same. So the United Republic of Tanzania welcomes you all. And let me conclude by saying karibuni sana, and we have good people here. You are safe with your money. Politically, we are stable. Every 5 years we go for election, and you have never had there is a bloodshed in this country since Mwalimu Nyerere era. Asanteni sana.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Hussein Bashe, for that really excellent presentation on the situation of agriculture in Tanzania, the very important vision that is already in place. Tanzania is ready for investment. Agriculture is extremely important in the socio-economic development of the country. And all this environment has been created for the private sector to thrive and all the other players. It is about a very strong partnership to realize this objective. We are now going to have a brief presentation of video, after which We'll then welcome the floor to have some comments or contribution. I hope the video presentation is ready.
Tanzania is a prime agricultural destination of unmatched potential with an exceptional range of comparative advantages. Tanzania stands as the epitome of agricultural excellence. The country's agricultural sector is fortified by a wealth of opportunities that beckon prospective investors to harness its bountiful resources and embark on a journey of large-scale commercial farming. Tanzania's allure as an agricultural haven is founded upon its unmatched comparative advantages. The canvas of 44 million hectares of arable land, the promise of farming and agro-processing potentials, coupled with plentiful water resources, favorable climate, and the synergy between local demand and export potential, collectively set the stage for an agricultural renaissance. For those with the vision to seize this opportunity, Tanzania stands ready to transform agricultural ambitions into thriving realities. In the next few minutes, we'll explore three key value chains: avocado, sunflower, and wheat, uncovering the government's objectives, market data, demand forecasts, and exciting investment possibilities. Let's start with avocado. Often referred to as green gold, this crop is part of a rapidly growing sector in Tanzania's agriculture. The main objective of the government is to increase the production of avocado products from over 188,000 tons in 2021-2022 to 315,000 tons by 2026-2027 by increasing the production area from over 27,000 hectares now to around 46,000 hectares and enhancing productivity. With its favorable climate and fertile soil, Tanzania has the potential to become a major player in the global avocado market. Tanzania currently exports a substantial portion of its avocados to Europe, Southern Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Global demand for avocados is projected to rise steadily, creating a favorable market environment for Tanzanian exports. Investment opportunities abound in the areas of production of high-quality avocado seedlings to increase the yield of avocado. There are also opportunities for the establishment of large-scale farms or block farming for avocado production, the establishment of infrastructure for collecting, transporting, and storing avocados. Another investment area is in enhancing access to agricultural inputs, establishing agricultural tools facilities or a mechanization hub, improving marketing systems, and providing training on the development of avocado products to farmers and agricultural extension officers. Sunflower is another valuable crop in Tanzania's agriculture, with a range of applications from oil extraction to food products. The government aims to reduce or eliminate its reliance on imported vegetable oil and become self-reliant in producing cooking oil. Sunflower production has been steady, but the demand for sunflower oil is rising due to increasing health-conscious consumer preferences. At 600,000 tons, annual demand for sunflower oil in Tanzania is higher than the current supply of 180,000 tons. The 420,000 ton gap opens avenues for investment in production and processing. Tanzania imports a significant amount of sunflower oil, highlighting the potential to meet domestic demand and reduce imports. Local demand for sunflower is expected to reach 700,000 tons by 2030. With the right investments, Tanzanian sunflower products can capture regional and international markets. Investment areas include the production of high-quality sunflower seeds to increase the yield of sunflowers, large-scale farming of oil seeds, the establishment of modern oil seeds processing facilities, and the establishment of refineries. Wheat is a staple food in Tanzania. The government is committed to increasing domestic production to meet food consumption requirements, reduce or eliminate its reliance on imported wheat, and become self-reliant in producing wheat seeds. It is also committed to increasing the production of this crop because it has the potential to drive the growth of agro-processing, increase income for farmers, and create employment opportunities for youth and women across the value chain. Wheat demand is consistently high due to its importance in daily diets, yet local production falls short of meeting this demand. Annual demand, both domestic and industrial, is about 1 million tons. Currently, the country only meets 10% of its needs. This substantial gap between wheat production and consumption offers an attractive investment opportunity. Tanzania heavily relies on wheat imports, creating potential for domestic production to replace some of these imports. As the population grows, the demand for wheat-based products is expected to increase steadily. The Tanzanian government has earmarked 400,000 hectares of land for wheat cultivation by interested wheat farmers. As such, investment opportunities lie in the areas of wheat production by small-scale farmers, researching high-quality wheat seeds that have drought resistance and gluten protein, increasing wheat seeds multiplication, the establishment of large-scale farms, and supporting smallholders to grow wheat productively. Tanzania stands as a promising destination for agricultural ventures, boasting an array of attractive incentives that support and nurture the growth of the industry. The nation's commitment to fostering agricultural innovation and sustainability is exemplified through a comprehensive set of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives that are designed to encourage investments and drive advancements in the sector. Tanzania offers fiscal incentives on project capital goods exemptions. Investors are granted a remarkable advantage with a complete exemption on imported duties for capital goods, reducing initial financial burdens and facilitating a smooth project launch. Zero import duty on raw materials. Import duties on raw materials are eliminated, stimulating cost-effective production processes and incentivizing value addition in the agricultural sector. Tax relief on deemed capital goods. A noteworthy 75% exemption on import duties for deemed capital goods significantly eases the financial load on businesses, fostering a favorable environment for growth and innovation. With a 100% capital allowance for agriculture and 50% for fish farming, businesses have the opportunity to invest and expand their operations while benefiting from reduced tax burdens. Businesses can make use of a depreciation allowance ranging from 37.5% to 5%, optimizing their financial strategies and enabling them to make well-informed investments. Non-fiscal incentives include an automatic immigration quota. During the implementation of projects, an initial allocation of 10 expatriates is provided, with the added benefit of 1 expatriate for every 10 jobs created. This encourages the exchange of expertise and the fostering of a diverse work environment. The seamless repatriation of funds encompassing net profits, loan repayments, royalties, fees related to foreign technology, and employee remittances amplifies investor confidence and fosters financial fluidity. Tanzania's holistic incentives package reflects its dedication to the growth and advancement of the agricultural sector. By providing a conducive environment for investment, innovation, and sustainable development, Tanzania paves the way for a prosperous future for both domestic and international stakeholders in the agricultural industry. Strategic investors are able to enjoy more incentives than normal investors. The investor can have an opportunity to get over and above incentives provided by normal incentives. The strategic investor can be awarded based on the value or the capital to be invested, the contribution of the project in terms of creating employment opportunities, and the economic benefit of the project to the country. To support these policies, we have in place basic infrastructure services such as water, power, roads, rail, air, transport, and telecommunications available at varying degrees. Currently, one is assured of electricity and more generation is on the way. Most key economic centers are connected with good roads and more are being constructed. telecommunication is adequately available throughout the country. We have revived our airline, Air Tanzania, which provides satisfactory services to various destinations within the country. Tanzania offers exciting investment opportunities in the avocado, sunflower, and wheat value chains. The government's development objectives, coupled with market trends and increasing demand, create a favorable environment for potential investors. By improving competitiveness, adopting modern practices, and investing in value addition, you can play a vital role in enhancing Tanzania's agricultural sector while reaping significant benefits. Thank you for watching, and we encourage you to explore the vast potential of Tanzania's agriculture.
Okay, thank you very much. I think with the excellent presentation by the Minister for Agriculture, and now we've seen the video, I think we've seen it all. And it's so attractive in terms of our readiness to attract investment in agriculture in Tanzania. Let me take this opportunity to introduce the Minister for Livestock and Fisheries, Honorable Abdallah Ulega. He's seated there. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa Waziri. The floor is now open for any questions, clarifications from the presentation and from any other issue that you may want to understand if you want to come and invest in Tanzania in agriculture. The opportunities are huge. Crops, livestock, fisheries. Only the sky is the limit in terms of the investment opportunities in agriculture in Tanzania. Karibuni. Can I have the mic? We have one on this side, another one, yes, another one on the other side. Anybody who wants to take the floor? It appears as if all the issues have been so well presented, there are no issues. You are all ready to come and partner with the Tanzanian people. Okay, Karibu.
Asante.
You know the lights, they a little bit blind. I can't see to the back. Karibu.
Yeah, sure. Please allow me to speak in Swahili. Naitwa Mandolin Kahindi.
If you can just introduce yourself and where you come from, your institution, your business, karibu.
Yes, naitwa Mandolin Kahindi, natokea Kijani Consult Tanzania. Nafanya kuprofile na kupromote shughuli za kilimo biashara hasa kwa vijana. Presentation imefanyika tu ni nzuri. Pengine kwa sababu lengo ni kushowcase kitu ambacho tuko nacho Tanzania, ila mimi nilikuwa naomba kitu kidogo tu. Meeting point ya wadau wa Tanzania na hawa wawekezaji kutoka nje, kwamba ni kwa kiasi gani pia hata hawa wameandaliwa kupiki hizo opportunities zinapokuja, ili iwe business to business. Hiyo ndio kitu nilikuwa natamani kuisikia tu, kuona are we ready there to pick these opportunities which will come with the investors. Asante.
Asante. Another one? I hope those who cannot follow Kiswahili got the translation in English. Otherwise, the issue is for those who are really, local investors, what is the arrangement facility for them to partner with foreign investors who come to invest in Tanzania? What facilities are there, support, and so forth? I think we are all aware that as a matter of government policy and strategy, there's a lot of emphasis on, local content. I see PS Agriculture, I think, wants to respond to that one. Karibu, Katibu.
Kama alivyouliza. Kwanza nashukuru kwa swali lake. Moja ya jambo kubwa sana la mkutano huu ni kucreate a platform au kuweka jukwaa kwa ajili ya kukutanisha wawekezaji wa nje na wa ndani. Na tunafanya hivyo kwa njia tatu. Ya kwanza, tumeandaa deal rooms hapa, kwamba baada ya kikao hiki kuna timu ya wataalamu kwa ajili ya watu ambao wamekuwa interested na hii presentation, both ya wadhiri na hii video, kwa ajili ya kuorodhesha maeneo yao, na tunaweka kwenye mtandao wetu kwa wale wa nje ambao wako interested kufanya kazi na timu hii ya Tanzania. Hiyo la kwanza. Lakini la pili liko kwako mwenyewe, kwamba kama mfanyabiashara unajibrand vipi kwa align na international standards. Na hii ni kazi ambayo tunaifanya pamoja na wenzetu wa TIC, wamekuwa kutusaidia sana. Kwamba tumefanya mambo mawili makubwa ambayo yalikuwa yanakwamisha wafanyabiashara wa Kitanzania kutoka. La kwanza ni kuestablish lab kwa ajili ya phytosanitary certification. Hiyo imesaidia kuongeza mara 4 mauzo kutoka ndani kwenda nje. Lakini pia ni maamuzi ya Watanzania wenyewe kutumia lab hizo. Bado kuna watu wana export kwa kutumia njia za kufanya bila phytosanitary certification, bahati mbaya inashusha soko letu. Kwa hiyo la kwanza, compliance ni jambo muhimu sana, na hiyo liko ndani ya wafanyabiashara sisi wenyewe kama wafanyabiashara. Jambo la pili ambalo tumelifanya, tumecreate a market platform tunaita Mkilimo. Mule ndani kwa mfanyabiashara ambaye hajui atampata wapi mnunuzi, anaweka details zake, anaweka anachouza, na timu yetu ya marketing inacheki naye, na hiyo kitu unaweza kaingia www.kilimo.go.tz. ndani utakutana na link ya Mkilimo na utakutana na hiyo platform mule ndani. Jambo la tatu, via TIC tumegundua kwenye tathmini wale ambao wako kwenye agri, kuna wale ambao wanafanya kilimo moja kwa moja. Mheshimiwa Waziri ameeleza kwamba amecreate nafasi ya kuwa na mashamba. Kwa hiyo unakuja na idea, tunaichambua, tunakuintroduce kwa TIC, kwa sababu mwanzo ili uweze kupata land ni lazima TIC awe nayo. Kwa Wizara ya Kilimo imeamua kutafuta hiyo land na kuikabidhi TIC ili kushorten the process. Jambo la tatu ambalo tunalifanya kuhakikisha kuwezesha mfanyabiashara kuweza kutrade na wafanyabiashara wa kimataifa ni kuhakikisha tunaandaa mikutano hii mara kwa sababu mwaka huu leo tuko hapa, lakini tarehe 17 mwezi wa 10 tutakuwa Uingereza, na baada ya hapo tutatangaza nchi 3-4 ambazo timu ya wataalamu wa Kitanzania wataondoka na wafanyabiashara wa Tanzania kwenda kukutana na wafanyabiashara wa kimataifa. Kwa hiyo tunaweza kuwa tuna changamoto, hatufanyi vizuri sana kwenye kudisseminate hii information, na hiyo ndio improvement ambayo tunaifanya. Lakini jambo la muhimu sana ni kuvisit official website zetu ya Wizara ya Kilimo ambayo inakuwa updated regularly pamoja na ya TIC.
Yeah, thank you very much, Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Agriculture, for that very clear clarification on the question that was raised by the participant. Yes, please. Karibu.
Asante moderator. I'm Victor Magnon. I work for the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA. I want to follow up on the excellent video on the tree value chain, especially on the wheat value chain. I applaud the effort of the government to produce more wheat in order to close the gap that is existing in the countries. But at the same time, I would like to say that Tanzania is the third country producing cassava in Africa. I will even say in the world. And we know that cassava can be processed in high-quality cassava flour that can be used partly in the bakery industry and pastry industry. So what I want to say that at the same time that the government is promoting wheat production, we need also to look at what we already have here in this country, cassava, which is produced by many Tanzanian small-scale farmers, to create more market for cassava product, and the technology exists to include high-quality cassava flour in the bakery industry, and to encourage the private sector that are involved in the milling industry to be using high-quality cassava flour. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that contribution and advice. I can see PSC Agriculture nodding that took note of that. We are a huge cassava producer. There is a potential for blending to reduce the consumption of imported wheat while we are building up our capacity to produce more local wheat. Yes, please, you have the floor. Karibu.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jonathan Said from Growth Teams. I just want to ask about the nexus between agriculture and manufacturing and broader industrialization. I know the government has plans to develop industrial clusters as well. So how are we maximizing the link to make sure that all the products that can come from agriculture, value addition products, but also supporting industry, packaging and textiles and so many products can really be maximized? If you can say a word about the plans for industrial parks and the links to agriculture, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question on the agro-industrial parks. I'm sure there will be a response to that one. As a matter of general policy, the government is already giving very high priority to industrialization, and agriculture, as we know, provides about 65% of the raw materials for industrial development in this country. So I'm sure. I wonder if PSC Agriculture would like to respond to that. Karibu Katibu Mkuu. Can we give the mic to the PSC Agriculture, please?
Thank you, Jonathan, for that question. Agro-processing and value addition is one of our key priorities, looking at our Agenda 1030, which is the strategy we have enacted last year by the High Excellency, President Samia Suluhu Hassan. And our intention is at least 50% of the produce to be processed locally by 2030. What are we doing to make this happen? First, for the agro-processing, we need the policies. Before any investment, we need the policies which promote investment. And we have mentioned in the previous, we have a fiscal, monetary, but also we have a sectorial policies. And that include tax relief, also provision of land, but also expertise. That is very important, so that we can reduce the cost of production. But secondly, what are we doing? Currently, there is the issue of electricity. Tanzania will be self-sufficient and have a surplus of electricity in the next 1 year due to the JK Nyerere project. I think that is a very important information to have for any investor who want to do a processing. But also, there is a ready market, and we are protecting it very carefully to make sure that whoever who is coming to invest is having the market. I think for a serious investor, those are the key issues to know, that there is a tax relief, there is a political will to support that, but also there is a market if you want to invest in the processing. But fourth and very important, is there is the value chain which were mentioned to be in the priority list. And we have mentioned the three here. We have maize, we have wheat, we have sunflower, we have sunflower, and we have avocado. And why did we start with wheat? First, as an import substitution to save our dollar, but also to make sure that we are investing whatever we get as the foreign currency in the areas which we do not have a competitive advantage. But for the cassava, yes, we are taking it and we are working to get varieties which are needed in the world market. Because one of the challenges in the cassava now, and they will agree with me, that we are not sure of the taste of cassava currently. Those are from Kisarawe, those are from Tanga. We have different varieties and with different tastes. So currently we are working on the seeds and seedlings so that to make sure that we have the varieties which are resilient to the climate first, but secondly, which are, what I will say, which are demand driven rather than supply driven. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PS. Another question, comment from the floor? Karibu. Can we have the mic? Where's the mic? Okay.
Thank you. My name is John Kagaruki, and I'm with Kickstart International. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I think my point that I'll probably question, Mheshimiwa Mwigulu, I think this one will kind of be directed to you, because it's about the contribution of agriculture to our treasury. I think that's very important. That's your docket. So I believe that right now we have a drive on investment, and we have a lot of partners here in business, and we've got a lot of very good positive information towards what will happen in that area. But I think one of the things that we should address, which I don't know whether it's a gap, I know it's spoken of a lot, is smallholder farmers and their contribution towards the economy. What in particular are we doing? For example, I know in the area of tin registration, I think if I'm not wrong, the statistics are 5 million. So out of 60 million, and we said we have 18
than 5% of total credit portfolio volume in most African countries is invested in agricultural sector. Many African countries are still failing to achieve the Maputo Declaration, Maputo Commitment, Maputo Declaration. Less than 20% of funding need for African agriculture SMEs is met. So we need innovative financing, for microfinancing for small orders farmers to public-private partnership. We need refreshed, accessible and sustainable financing model to empower Africa food system. So let me finish with this, that the challenge faced by Africa food system provide a clear call for a concerted response from government, the private sector, communities and individuals alike. This is not a one institution show, a one-man show. It has to be all of us coming together. We cannot expect a resilient, sustainable and inclusive Africa food system for the future while we continue business as usual. The time for action is now. Thank you.
What would a panel discussion look like if we're talking about the Africa agricultural status right now? We are about to find out. For the panel, please make your way to the stage. Thank you very much, I appreciate you. And we're looking at multiple stakeholders, collaborations and partners, and I'm going to invite all of the panelists to join us on stage for the first panel, the first discussion. Please take a seat. Dr. Schengen Fan, Dr. Simeon Ewi, Ms. Daj, Professor Braun, Mr. Kasiri. Professor Braun, sit a little bit closer.
Becomes easier even for large-scale investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On that question of broadening the tax base, I believe and Honorable Minister, you want to respond now or after? You can do now. I think if you want to respond now, you may want to go ahead. Karibu Mheshimiwa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, one of the main push to Her Excellence, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, on the motion which has been summarized by the sectoral minister is actually emanating from the contribution of agriculture and these issues, including on the side of the revenue. So far, the notable contribution of agriculture has been on the GDP, because it employs a big number of Tanzanians. But when it comes to the financial aspect on the revenue side, most of the farmers were lying on the side of the small peasants, cultivation just for consumption, and a small portion which lies on those medium to large size of cultivation. So the contribution so far is around 14. The contribution so far is around above 14 billion US dollars on the GDP, And then this is the basis of this agenda of making agriculture into business, turning it into business, and more specifically bringing the youth into agriculture, where we will be in position of widening the tax base and the contribution on the monetary value, which was the interest of my brother there.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that clarification. Any more comments from the floor? Okay, Karibu, I see a hand at the end.
Yeah, my name is John Matthew Nali. I'm the Director of Investment Promotion from Tanzania Investment Center. Mine is just a comment. In addition to what you have heard on the incentives that are applicable to investors who are investing into different sectors, we have also another package of incentives provided under the Export Processing Zones Authority. Now, under the EPZ scheme, we are targeting investors who are looking for the export market. So if your company will be able to export at least 80% of whatever you produce, or if you'll be able to meet an annual turnover of $500,000 US, then you'll be eligible to obtain an export processing zones license, whereby you will enjoy more benefits, such as exemption of corporate tax for 10 years, exemption of local government taxes for 10 years, and several other incentives which are applicable to investors under the EPZ. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that investment information on the available incentives. It appears as if we have exhausted our comments from the floor. And we have more participants joining us. We thank you for your very strong participation, and those who are really prepared to stand up to participate. This is excellent. I think the meeting has been extremely successful in terms of involvement of our partners. I'm trying to find out if there is anybody else who has got a question, a clarification, a comment from the floor. Okay, I don't see anybody asking for the floor. So again, let me thank you very much, and now take this opportunity to welcome the Honorable Minister for Finance, Honorable Mwigulu, to give his brief concluding remarks. Karibu Mheshimiwa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, the moderator. My brothers, Minister for the Blue Economy, Minister for Agriculture, both from Zanzibar, and Minister for Livestock and Fisheries, Deputy Ministers, senior government officials,
I wanted to share with you.
Professor Braun, you look so thoughtful right now. Articulate your thoughts. Yes, Professor Braun.
Acoustics is suffering. You know, we have to talk about risks and opportunities. And let's start with risks. There are opportunities in all these food systems related risks. The Global Risk Report, which comes out annually, puts at the top of global risks the failure to mitigate and adapt to climate change, natural disasters, inflation, so cost of living crisis. All these global risks also apply to Africa. Africa has risk coping capacity, but it needs to be strengthened. When we talk about resilience, we talk about the capacity to bounce back from a bad or unsatisfactory situation, the situation which our colleague John Olumwengo presented. And he presented also already what needs to be done to bounce back. Let me amplify. Resilience requires, in the climate area, three things: mitigation, adaptation, and transformation. And for Africa, most relevant is adaptation, adapt the food system to the crisis situation. And what does this mean? Advanced plant breeding, social protection with nutrition components, water use efficiency. So those are key examples. In our report, we say on resilience, essentially three things: strengthen the capacity to grow the food markets, because no resilience without functioning trade and markets. No resilience without enhanced productivity. So markets and productivity, that is where AGRA comes in and serves smallholders and traders. But also ensure access to safe and nutritious food for all. That's a broader social protection agenda. So in sum, mitigation, adaptation, and transformation. Transformation of the economic system to a bioeconomy, as the East African community of countries has already done. Two years ago.
Yes, resilience.
I very much agree with Dr. Joachim von Braun. So because of the shock we have faced for the last several years, climate change, droughts, floods, diseases, including COVID, and obviously geopolitical struggles. So the global food prices have been very vulnerable, very volatile, and we must work together, including the UN Secretary General, to negotiate some of the deals. And as I said, we face common challenges, and the solutions have to come together. Not to, right now we have seen countries begin to use export bans again. This is the lesson we learned for the last several decades. You do not use export bans to restrict the exports at the cost of your farmers, to benefit your consumers, and at the cost of your neighbors, and to benefit your own country. So we must stop this sino approach.
If we are talking about practicalities, Dr. Owe, of transforming Africa's food systems, we have to be inclusive. If we're talking about stakeholders, so producers and consumers, how do we focus on that?
No, thank you very much, Femi, for this important question. We just heard the brief report on the African Agriculture Status Report, and I think I invite everyone to look at it. But basically speaking, from reading it, there are three areas of focus that I was able to return. Policy reforms, I mentioned it, development of infrastructure, like roads and storage facilities, and adoption of technologies. So your question, Femi, is really how the transformation can be as inclusive as possible. I think it's critical. A few points there that I would like to make. Number one, I think we need to have equitable policy reforms. That's important. And what will be the target? The gender, the youth within the food system need to be targeted. That's how we'll be able to really address, ensure that the 250 million smaller farmers who operate on small plots can benefit from the system transformation. That's number one. The second point I want to mention is also empowering them through skills and knowledge. I think this is also critical. Now, between now and 2050, we're talking about 2.25 billion people in Africa. Now we're talking about 1.3 billion. So these farmers, these people, the farmers who are going to support the food for these people will need to have their capacity built so that they can provide the nutrition needed for the people. Access to resources is critical. Resources is not just money. It's about access to land. It's about access to credit. Okay? It's about access to various means of production. We need to be able to target, them by strata and ensure that they have access to those resources. The technology generation and adoption is critical. Just now, before this session, we had a meeting with the African Development Bank on the Dakar 2. And the question is, how can we translate the technologies that are coming out of science from the research, the CGIAR, the Natural Research Organization, in the hands of people? And that's where, again, we need to ensure that programs are developed so that technologies that are on the shelves, tested, proven, can actually be in the hands of those who are producing. I think it's critically important. I have much more to say, but let me stop at this point now and to say that, and I'll come back to these other points. But there's a lot we can do to make the transformation of the food system very inclusive going forward. Thank you.
So delegates who are watching online around the world, the hashtag is AGRF 2023. So I'm putting this out to you. If you're a young person, if you consider yourself a youth, what innovative strategies do you already have, do you know will work, that will help speed up the transformation of Africa's food systems? If you're here, delegates in the room, if you consider yourself to be a young person, put your hand up right now. Where are the young people in the room? Just a sprinkling. Miss Daj, I am asking you about what is it that the youth of the African continent can do that's innovative to help speed up this transformation of the food systems of the African continent. Just a handful of youth in the room, but I know there are many more who are participating in the forum in the next 4 days. Innovation. Please tell us.
Thank you very much. I think for innovative strategies, I would like to hand over to the youth of the room because they have great stories, which is their stories. But from my side, I would like to outline what came out from the report and some of the insightful points that came out from the other panelists and speakers. Because when we look at the challenges, we look at the challenges from a youth perspective. So there are many youth-led organizations that are doing great work when it comes to food system. We have Agriterra, we have innovation models such as Farmerline, and we have other organizations, including mine, just to outline the work we do, that really supports young people in food system and capacitate their skills and supports access to capital. But the truth is we're facing different challenges that is preventing youth meaningful contribution to food system transformation. Allow me to outline few which can contribute to the report. So policies are crucial for system transformation. The truth is that we are the youngest continent, but the average age of our leaders is 63. We have an intergenerational gap and we don't have enough platforms where young people, as the great youth here, can speak to their leaders and address their concerns. So I'm glad to see this forum that is getting more and more inclusive. By the way, I do believe inclusivity is costly, so we need to talk about that as well. And so we need intergenerational leadership and increased representation of youth in political institutions, processes and decision making. I see here the ambassador at large and the mention of the conference in Roma, so I do hope that young people of Africa are invited and supported before that conference to develop recommendations that speak to their concerns. The second point is digital technology and digital revolution. Only 28% of Africans use the internet, and agri-food systems are enabled by technology, and so we require significant public investments and improved regulations and coherent policy and incentive framework. And the reason I'm mentioning this recommendation is because actually African youth are working to address this recommendation, but we still need a more cross-sectoral engagement. Ethical issues and decent work in food system. Now, this is close to my heart. More and more youth are sensitive and aware to ethical issues, including decent work in food systems. And there is therefore a component of social justice implications, which I believe we need to bring to this forum. And we must integrate the perspective, including inclusivity, but also different realities, climate change, extractivism, protection of the environment, as well as gender inequality and stereotyping. As we speak, I come from a country where the effect of customary law and land inheritance are still a challenge to young women like me. And then youth employment and investment in youth. I was so happy to hear the mention about AFCFTA, because indeed it's innovative and again changing and improving food security as well. And with the protocol on women and youth, it's clear that we are at the forefront of the change, including in the food system response. However, we need to simplify access to finance, and I think this is the biggest issue that African youth are facing. And so my three recommendations are intergenerational leadership, policies that consider Africa digital revolution, ethical issues and decent work, and access to capital and sustainable funding to enable youth crucial contribution in Africa's food system transformation. Thank you.
So what we are doing on this stage today is just touching on some of the much deeper themes that we will be exploring over the next 4 days, in breakout sessions, in the plenary sessions, in bilateral meetings that you are having as well. Remember, recover, regeneration, and then finally act. Mr. Kasiri, critical strategies that we need to be thinking about in the next 4 days for transformation.
Thank you very much. Strategy is critical. Different countries are solving for different things at different times. We have to think about the livelihoods of the 250 million smallholder farmers. We think about food security. We think about the effects of climate change. And so this ever-changing set of realities means that we have to think about the trade-offs, and those trade-offs means having smart strategy. However, I would posit that even more important than strategy is getting things done. Sometimes strategy gets the results you want, sometimes it doesn't. But once you move into delivery and getting things done, you have momentum, and you can learn, and you can adapt. As we scan the landscape across the continent, we see many pockets of progress that have been made, including where we sit in Tanzania, which is a powerhouse of agriculture regionally. But with the 50-plus countries we have, only 3 or 4 have made a structural, substantial improvement in the performance of their agriculture and food ecosystems. And so it really speaks to the fact that we do need to invest in thinking about how we are going to deliver these strategies. These countries where we've seen this improvement have long-term commitment to the sector. They put resources, both human and financial, behind it, and often make structural changes to ensure that it happens. But as the agriculture and food systems evolve and become more complex, we need to learn to benefit from other models of delivery too. It should not fall squarely on the shoulders of government. Where government puts in place the right policies and the right enabling environment, we see the power of the private sector being unleashed in incredible ways to have significant impact. We speak about the fact that governments are not able to fund their ambitions in this sector, the private sector can unlock multiple times that funding if, again, we create the right environment for them. And also, we really shouldn't put aside the really important role of development partners in implementing, because often in this space, what needs to be worked on is a public good. And where there is a public good, development partners have a very crucial role to play. And so bringing all of these together, the public, the private, and the development partners, with a strong focus on getting things done, I believe, would put our continent in a substantially different place. My wife often reminds me, and she says, Omid, you always seem to have a strategy around how you're going to get your body in shape. I seem to struggle to get it done. And so I'd posture the same is important for our sector.
Mr. Kasiri, Professor Braun, Dr. Hui, Dr. Fan, Ms. Daji, thank you for getting us started on the very first discussion in this very important Africa's Food Systems Forum. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Ashe, thank you. I'm being greeted in Yoruba. That was the first discussion in our plenary session, the official opening plenary ceremony. But we are getting ready for discussion number 2. I am delighted to be sharing the moderating with Ms. Nadine Abossa. Nadine, please come and sit and bring your panel with you. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Nadine Bossa is the Director of the Food Systems Coordination for IFAD, and I will be handing over to you so that you can instruct your panel. Nadine, thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Femi. It's never easy to moderate after you, but I'll try to entertain you as well as she did. So we're going to start with the second part of the opening session, and it's basically food system stock taking. Where do we stand 2 years later? We will not start again. You know that we all convened 2 years ago to commit to food system transformation in Africa. The first global stock take took place 6 weeks ago in Rome and brought leaders, ministers, stakeholders, civil society in Rome to discuss 2 years later, after committing to transforming food system, where do we stand? We don't want to come here every year and hear about potential. The potential of Africa. We have the youngest population in the world. The median age is 20 years old. We have 65% of uncultivated arable land. We have solution, we have technology, we have research to make hunger, poverty, malnutrition, climate disaster a story of the past. But the theme is recover, regenerate, and act. So, as I said, I don't want to come here every year, meet you, and discuss the potential we have. Because when the potential never materializes, it becomes an issue. So in this session, we are going to discuss what have we done 2 years later. And we will have two distinguished speakers to frame the discussion. Let me call first Mr. Lawrence Haddad to the stage. And many of you know him. He's the Executive Director of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. He's also a renowned thought leader on nutrition and also the World Food Prize winner. So I think you have exactly the right person to start framing the discussion. Lawrence, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nadine, and it's great to be back here. The question that Femi asked the previous panel was a great question, and she asked us, why are you here? So my my answer to that question is, this is the place I learn the most every year. This is the place I learn the most. And this is the place where I feel like there's the biggest openness to learning and sharing amongst the participants. So this is where my heart gets lifted up the most every year. So I'm delighted to be back here. The task I was given in a few brief minutes was to make some points about critical parameters for food system transformation. So I have 7 very quick points. So the first thing is to prioritize goals. We know that food systems can do lots of things. They can reduce hunger, reduce malnutrition, improve resilience, accelerate climate action, promote biodiversity, generate jobs, reduce poverty. But it's difficult to do all of these things at the same time. So a government will have to, and a business, and an organization such as GAIN, we have to prioritize what we're going to be doing first. That's very important. Not loud enough. Second, thank you, Nadine, always taking care of me. Second, know your food systems. Is that better? Yes? Second, know your food systems. If I was a policymaker in Africa or anywhere, and I was tasked with developing and transforming my food system, I would be in a panic because I would say, what does my food system look like? And if I need to find out what my food system looks like, I have to go to 30 different sources of data. So we need to develop platforms that bring all food system data together to make it really easy to describe and diagnose a country's food system. GAIN and FAO and others are working on a food system dashboard, and I encourage you to look at that. The third thing, know your resources. I bet you don't know, ministers, how much your government spends on your food system. I bet you, MDs and CEOs, you don't know how much your company spends on food systems. That's because budgets are not constructed around food systems until now. We have the 3FS initiative led by IFAD and the World Bank and others, which is a tool for mapping what you spend and where you spend it, which sectors, which regions, which objectives are being promoted by your current spend. That'll help you figure out where the gaps are and where maybe you're over-investing. I am a big believer in the fact that there's a lot of resources in the food system, but they're just pointing in the wrong direction or they're misallocated. Fourth, develop a plan. Food systems are complex, lots of moving parts, lots of stakeholders. As Omid said in the previous session, strategies and plans aren't everything, but developing a strategy and a plan will help you think through the issues that you need to help through. And I note from the stocktake in Rome a couple of months ago, 37 African countries have a plan, which is fantastic. But that also means that 18 do not. And if you don't have a plan, I think it's really challenging to transform your food system. Fifth, align policies. When you work across sectors, it's really easy to develop a policy that's fantastic for hunger reduction, but is terrible for environmental protection. Or you develop a program that is great for income generation, but terrible for resilience. Or you develop something that's good for nutrition improvement, but is not so good for the environment. If you don't have a way of assessing the coherence of your policies, you're going to be in trouble. And again, I know Academia 2063 is doing some really interesting work on developing a policy coherence tool. 6, develop an ecosystem of support. Governments are obviously key. They set the tone, as Agnes Kalabata said 2 years ago in the Food System Summit. They set the tone. But they can't do everything by themselves. They need an ecosystem of support internally and externally. But we in the ecosystem, we have to make sure this ecosystem is not one of cacophony, but one of symphony. It's not chaotic, but it is coherent. It is not individualistic, but it is collective. And that's a challenge to every one of us in the room. If you are here and you say you support a government, then you better be working with other people who say the same thing. And finally, we need to assess progress. If you don't assess progress, you're flying blind. if you don't assess progress, how can we take anything you say seriously? There isn't a mechanism for assessing progress in food system transformation yet, but there are a number of important initiatives. One of them is you'll see in the State of African Food System report that will be released later today. You'll see it. It's called the Countdown Initiative. It's got 50 indicators that I think are a good starting point for any government who wants to assess its food system. But more important than that, we can't wait for 5 years to see if our food system transformation is working on environment or health or food or nutrition or jobs. We need some progress indicators. We need to see our policies being changed, our resource allocations being changed, our institutions being changed, is data being used. So colleagues, the good news is from this Countdown Initiative, which you see in the report, is that compared to global averages, Africa is doing better or the same in half of those 50 indicators. So I want to echo what John said this morning. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some areas where the rest of the world can look to Africa and learn from Africa. So with that, Nadine, thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And he started enlightening you on the critical parameters for the food system transformation in the region. I want to call on a renowned also expert from the region, Dr. Jean-Jacques Mohinda, Regional Head of East Africa AGRA. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Nadine, for the opportunity, and good morning, everyone. So let me pick up from where the previous speaker has just stopped, and actually agree that we are during this conference discussing Africa's food systems transformation in a global challenging situation. And I tend to agree with John that there are actually solutions. In fact, African agricultural transformation and food systems transformation journey in the recent years has been slowed down by multiple shocks, all the way from COVID-19, climate change, and the conflict in Eastern Europe. If you look at some of the critical Malabo commitment, for instance, on reducing hunger, on accelerating investment, and even poverty eradication. Just to use a few facts and share a few ideas for the next panel to consider, we now have evidence showing that African agricultural productivity growth has been reduced by close to 34% in the last 50 years due to climate change. We also have emerging data and statistics showing that our continent now is home to 1/3 of people facing hunger, if you look at the numbers globally. And the population from this continent that is going to be affected by different climate change hazards in 2050 is going to be close to 1 billion under the 2 degrees Celsius warming scenario. Another probably important statistic, and John mentioned briefly on this, is the reliance on import on some of the food commodities. And if you look at the current statistics and the numbers we have, we're spending nearly 34 billion on 4 agricultural commodities that can be grown in existing food baskets and agroecological zones in the continent, such as wheat, maize, rice, and soybean. And this is a continent where we're still importing close to 90% of fertilizers, spending another close to $5 billion annually on imported fertilizers. And all of this is being worsened by declining development flows in the agricultural sector. If you compare numbers from 2021 and 2022, when we had the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, I want to share a few ideas for the next panel to consider. Number one, if you have to accelerate implementation for the remaining 2 years to the end of the Malabo in 2025, we need as a continent an integrated plan that brings together investment that promote agricultural productivity, that support infrastructure development for production, for marketing, for value addition, but also investment in climate resilient practices. Number two, we cannot accelerate implementation if we keep implementing in isolation. So I'm proposing the panel to take into consideration the idea of integrating existing continental framework, CADAP, the African Continental Free Trade Area that was mentioned earlier, the Program for Infrastructure Development, the Science and Technology Strategy for Africa known as STISA, including even the framework on AU data policy that can help us tracking like the previous speaker has been mentioning. And all of this in the context of the Africans Agenda 2023, but also the SDGs by 2030. Good enough, the African Common Position Papers on food systems brings all these frameworks together and outlines key priorities and ambition with the expected impact to actually achieve a 1 trillion food industry that provides not only sufficient nutritious food, but also enhances supply chain infrastructure and also creates work opportunities for youth, especially for young women. My last point for the panel to consider is on rethinking the governance of the future African food systems. Today, we cannot continue shying away against some of the emerging trends. For instance, integrating the cutting-edge technologies. You know, we have been hearing about the artificial intelligence, digital technologies, you know, blockchains, e-commerce, and many others. Number two, an integrated plan has also to take into consideration the age, the generational, and the gender employment gaps that exist in the continent today. Of course, taking into consideration food systems approach, but also climate change shocks, water and land degradation. Number three, it has been already mentioned that this is a continent that is home to the world's largest, youngest, and fastest growing population. One of the speakers mentioned about the population doubling to 2.5 billion